core pillar of our new strategy is a shift from a time-based approach to one based on conditions. I've said it many times, how counterproductive it is for the United States to announce in advance the dates we intend to begin or end military options. We will not talk about numbers of troops or our plans for further military activities. Conditions on the ground, not arbitrary timetables, will guide our strategy from now on. America's enemies must never know our plans or believe they can wait us out. I will not say when we are going to attack, but attack we will. America will continue its support for the Afghan government and the Afghan military as they confront the Taliban in the field. Ultimately, it is up to the people of Afghanistan to take ownership of their future, to govern their society, and to achieve an everlasting peace. We are a partner and a friend, but we will not dictate to the Afghan people how to live or how to govern their own complex society. We are not nation building again. We are killing terrorists.
Joining me now, retired Brigadier General and author of Besieged, General A.J. Tata. General, good to see you.
Good to see you, Liz.
All right, General, let's start with this question of the day today. President Trump claimed that this is a brand new strategy. He said he would not be continuing the policies in Afghanistan that I guess were pursued under President Obama. Let me ask you, after listening to this speech, did it seem to you that this is in fact a new strategy, or is it more of the same, just repackaged?
No, I think it's a brand new strategy, particularly when you think about the Obama administration, who primarily used the military as a marketing tool. When things didn't go well, it was Bush's fault. When things did go well, of course, it was President Obama with a knife in his teeth. So, and the timeline-based approach that President Obama had in Iraq, in the face of the Syrian civil war and the Arab Spring in 2011, he pulls out completely from Iraq, intelligence, communications, combat forces, all of that. And that is the antithesis right now of what President Trump is doing by talking about sort of an events-based approach, which if we accomplish the mission, when we accomplish the mission on the ground, then we will pack up and go home. But we're not going to put out a timeline. And having been in Afghanistan, boots on the ground for 13 months, I have had governors and mayors of towns in Afghanistan and commanders there say to me, why do you put a timeline out? Why do you say when you're leaving? Because the Taliban and Al-Qaeda will just sharpen their knives and right. Sit down and while you know they wait for you to leave.
Right, just bide their time, wait for America to get out of the way so that they can pursue their terror activities. I mean, if you're on a clock,
exactly.
That's only human nature, that's logical. Talk to me about the rules of engagement, though. President Trump just barely touched on this, but I thought it was particularly worth noting, given conversations you and I have had, that I've had with so many military members who fought in Afghanistan. He said micromanaging is not going to win the war, that he's going to loosen up some of the regulations so that U.S. forces can actually fight the Taliban. What's that going to look like, General?
Well, I think it'll look a lot like what we're seeing with the acceleration of success against ISIS. So when President Obama was in, you had to call the National Security Council effectively to drop a bomb on a target. And now President Trump has said, look, this is the commander on the ground's decision. And so what you're seeing when you delegate authority and responsibility together to seasoned combat veteran commanders, you're going to have success. And so we see Mosul being reclaimed. We see Syria being an area where ISIS is having a hard time finding refuge, so they go to Libya. And I think the president learned from that and is hoping to repeat that strategy in Afghanistan, where he loosens the rules of engagement. He added to the combatant list, and it was very subtle, like, as you mentioned, the criminal networks and the narco terrorists that are in there that previously were not necessarily an authorized target. So he broadened the authority for commanders to target those that are working with the enemies we're fighting, Al-Qaeda, ISIS, Taliban, etc., and they're getting their money from these narco-terrorists and these criminal rings, and so now they're on the hit list of flat out being able to target them.
Right.
And that, you're right, it was subtle, but it's a great move on the president's part.
Right, and I think that's part of his three-pronged approach, and this he was very clear about in his speech, that he wants to cut off territory for terrorists. He wants to cut off their funding, and then he wants to delegitimize, expose the false allure of their evil ideology, he said, which I thought was brilliant. General, before we go, I want to turn to Pakistan. This was not a veiled threat to Pakistan. This was an open threat to Pakistan if they continue to harbor terrorists and promote terrorism. Take a look.
The next pillar of our new strategy is to change the approach and how to deal with Pakistan. We can no longer be silent about Pakistan's safe havens for terrorist organizations, the Taliban, and other groups that pose a threat to the region and beyond. Pakistan has much to gain from partnering with our effort in Afghanistan. It has much to lose by continuing to harbor criminals and terrorists. In the past, Pakistan has been a valued partner. Our militaries have worked together against common enemies. The Pakistani people have suffered greatly from terrorism and extremism. We recognize those contributions and those sacrifices. But Pakistan has also sheltered the same organizations that try every single day to kill our people. We have been paying Pakistan billions and billions of dollars. At the same time, they are housing the very terrorists that we are fighting. But that will have to change, and that will change immediately. No partnership can survive a country's harboring of militants and terrorists who target U.S. service members and officials. It is time for Pakistan to demonstrate its commitment to civilization, order, and to peace.
Listen, General, this was perhaps my favorite part of the whole speech. Like I said, not a veiled threat, a very open, almost aggressive threat. I mean, billions of dollars we, the United States, give to Pakistan every year. The president threatened to withhold that if Pakistan continues to fund and harbor terrorists. How is this going to change the fight?
Well, it was a very important point he made, and he also mentioned India in there, and that India and Pakistan don't get along, and him referencing India, he was using information power to talk to Pakistan and say, hey, look, we're trading partners with India, and we can certainly put a little pressure on you from the eastern flank of your country as well. And so I've seen Pakistani sergeants allow Al-Qaeda and Taliban fighters through the gate on the border to go attack our FOBs. So he's exactly right. And it was a little bit faint praise by saying they've been good partners in a military sense. Yes, their military has fought, and they have had casualties. At the same time, they have not sustained any kind of operation, in the Waziristan, Fatah, and all that. The tribal warlords control that area. But I'll tell you, my favorite part of the speech, Liz, was the very beginning where he talked about honoring the U.S. military and service members as a role model for the nation, and then sort of ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. He pivoted right into talking about every citizen's obligation to support the nation when we have these threats against us, like ISIS, like North Korea, like Al-Qaeda, and I thought that was a beautiful way for him to start his speech, holding the military that is just part of the same cloth of this nation that comes together and unifies and focuses on a mission together and works together at a time when this country is so divided, and using the military as an example for the country to follow. I thought that was brilliant.
Right, it was beautiful, and some of that gratitude, some of that is owed to you as well. I mean, I know we talk to you because of your professional expertise here, but this fight is personal to you, too. I mean, like you said, you were in Afghanistan. You fought that fight. This war has been going on for 16 years. You're as part of it as anybody else in our military, and we thank you for that, sir.